Good day, everyone. It's Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV on the Digital Anarchist Network. Welcome. Today's Wednesday, April 1st. We hope you're doing well. If you're joining in, whether you're working from home, which you probably are, or maybe in an office, thanks for joining us. We are broadcasting on the Digital Anarchist Network, so you might be watching this on YouTube, DevOps TV, or Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, or maybe digitalanarchist.com, or right here on YouTube on TechStrong.tv. You can watch it on there too. And if you're watching it on television, you can catch it on our Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, and Apple TV channels if you download the DevOps.com channel. And no matter where you're watching it, thanks for joining us. We are putting on TechStrong TV on a daily basis now. If you're like me, I'm thinking you've had enough of watching CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or whatever you watch. Those 24-hour news cycles will just depress you, frankly. And you're probably binging on your Netflix and looking for fresh meat on Amazon or Amazon Prime or new things to watch on Hulu. But maybe you could do that tonight. And for the next few hours, we're going to try to entertain you, keep you up to date with what's happening in tech, and give you some great content. So just a quick reminder that TechStrong TV is brought to you by Media Ops, the folks behind DevOps.com, Security Boulevard, and Container Journal. And we'll be doing a TechStrong conference. You can start getting details for that over at TechStrongCon.com. And we're announcing our first round of speakers tomorrow. Actually, we are going to feature two of our speakers today from TechStrongCon, and we'll go into that in just a moment. So we have about 2 hours again today lined up for you. Hopefully by next week we'll push it to 3 hours and then eventually on to 4 hours. And we hope that this will become a daily stop for you where, while you're working, keep it on in the background. If you could always stop and start it. It is being recorded, so if you don't catch the live show, you could come back and watch it on demand later as well. That's about it. If we're ready now, let's going to do a quick word from our sponsors, and we're going to come back with our first segment.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel, TechStrong TV on the Digital Anarchist Network, and we're back here in the studio. This next segment, again, comes from our archives. I'm trying to highlight some of the best that we have on digitalanarchist.com, as well as pulling from our YouTube DevOps TV archive. This next segment features a woman who I had the pleasure of meeting originally in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, at the GitLab Commit conference. And actually this video is from the GitLab Commit conference in Williamsburg. I want to say it was last October and November. This is a relatively young woman who named Jasmine James. Jasmine runs the DevOps Center of Excellence at Delta. And beyond just doing an amazing job and really showcasing in her presentations and her discussions what she's doing and what Delta is doing around DevOps, to me, she is really just a rising star in the DevOps community. She is articulate, really bright. There's almost an aura around her when she's speaking, and I find myself, I can just watch and listen to her talk about DevOps all day. I mean, just a lot of great things to say. I think you're going to really enjoy this conversation. So with that, let me jump out. This is Jasmine James from Delta at DevOps at GitLab Commit in Williamsburg, Brooklyn in late 2019. We'll be right back after the video.
This is Digital Anarchist at GitLab Commit, Brooklyn, 2019.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com, and we're here in Brooklyn of all places for GitLab Commit, coming at you on the digitalanarchist.live streaming platform. And for those of us joining live today, thanks for joining. I hope you're enjoying our guests and interviews. And for those of you maybe who are watching this as not live and recorded, you should go check out some of the other interviews we did here today, because it was a great event here by GitLab and a lot of interesting information for you. Let me introduce you to our next guest up on Digital Anarchist Live. It's Jasmine James, coming all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. She works for Delta. And Jasmine, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Alan.
Thank you. So let's start off with Jasmine. What do you do at Delta?
So I'm the manager of the DevOps Center of Excellence, and what we do is provide tooling and capabilities for developers at Delta to enable DevOps. So in a short, that's what we do.
Great. You know what? You're the first person I've ever had who has a DevOps Center of Excellence.
Yeah.
And that, coming from the enterprise side of the house, when they're setting up centers of excellence for something, it's real.
Yeah.
And so that's fantastic to hear. How long has this DevOps Center of Excellence been around?
So our team really emerged from legacy tooling that was available, and because we were embarking upon transformation, we wanted to enable DevOps, we kind of just rebranded ourselves into the DevOps Center of Excellence. So
Very cool.
I would say we've been around for about 2.5 years. Yeah.
Fantastic. And you are kind of standardizing on tools for the DevOps teams throughout the organization?
Yes. So at Delta, there were a lot of teams that were doing a lot of cool stuff. So we wanted to kind of bring it all in and provide some standards and best practices so that some of the teams who were not as mature could leverage the same capabilities. Yeah.
So excellent and very noble of you to do, but I think one of the things we see in our audience is developers want to be free, right?
Yes.
And everybody wants to use their own tools. And let's face it, it's hard hiring and keeping
For sure.
good developers, good DevOps teams. And so the tendency is, all right, if they really feel strongly about using this tool, have at it.
Yeah.
How do you balance that with, hey, we got a big company to run here and we all can't talk a different language?
Yeah, I think it's important to know that you're listening to the developers and that you're really honestly considering their wants and needs. We try to provide guardrails, not necessarily like hard guardrails, just provide some things to say in between. We don't discourage innovation. We have a lot of teams at Delta that are doing really cool things, but when we find something cool, we want to bring it in and make sure that it's within our enterprise best practices and then propagate that into the rest of the organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're almost providing guidance and stuff like that.
Right, exactly.
Just to get, look, we all know Delta's a very big enterprise, but how many different DevOps teams do you think are within Delta?
Oh my goodness. I would say upwards of 200 or more. We have a
Really?
lot of
Wow.
application teams, and now that we're focused on taking our monolithic applications and breaking them down and even further and have development teams focused on certain microservices, it's multiplying,
Right,
I think.
that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And that's good. And hence the need for a DevOps Center of Excellence.
Exactly, yeah.
I get it. What brings you up to GitLab?
Well, we are
Commit, excuse me.
Yeah, we are a proud customer of GitLab, and they were like the first partner that we started off with on this new tooling journey. So it's very, very good to see how far they've come since then, and how other companies are leveraging all these capabilities that are out there. We're only so far leveraging version control, but we're looking at bringing in the CI portion to serve as another offering for our development community and provide 2 tracks, if you will, to CI/CD into the cloud native world.
That's excellent. And I think that's probably the normal sort of evolutionary path
Right.
for GitLab customers is, you first come to the Git part of it, right? The version control and repo. And then, they're really well known for CI.
Yes.
And once you're starting CI, well, then CD's the next foot, right?
Yep.
And then, but then there's also the security and there's post. They're adding part of their announcement today about raising, this next big round is to add this functionality for an end-to-end,
Yeah.
DevOps solution. So it's pretty cool in there. How do you resolve, hundreds of DevOps teams using dozens of tools? How do you, as we said before, you got to let people choose what they want. When does that become a problem, I guess is my question.
A problem as far as too many tools. I think that it becomes a problem when you don't know about the things out there. I think that we have a good pulse on our development community, so I would say I would bet that we have an idea of what's going on out there, but the problem emerges when you don't know what's going on and you don't have any idea how these teams are deploying into production infrastructure. You don't have any guardrails or controls, so that's when the problem arises. But I think at Delta we've done a good job of centralizing what tools are being used, and we have a good governance process from our enterprise architecture review board that makes sure that teams are staying within the path that we've pretty much defined for them, which is good.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know what, if you don't mind, people watching out here saying, wow, this is this woman is well-spoken in the heart of things at DevOps. God darn it, I want to be in DevOps. Give our people a little idea of your own personal journey. How did you get to be at the heart of the Delta DevOps excellence team?
Well, it's a funny thing. I never thought I would end up here. So I started my career at AT&T, which is a large telecom company in Atlanta, born and raised there. I spent 6.5 years there focused on test automation and utilizing my computer science background and Java development skills to write UI automation.
Got it. Okay.
And after that, I was like, okay, this is nice. Kind of worked into a SDET, a software developer in test role. I was like, this is cool, but I kind of like the people aspect of, technology. So I focused on getting my MBA, learning the business side of things, finances, all that good stuff. And last year I got my MBA finally, and thank you. And I just moved into this role in May. So I really think that shifting from a developer mindset, which I had, into like a people manager kind of, it's been a big shift, I must say, but I'm more focused on enabling developers right now, and I think that's a different mindset that I have. So it's really great. It's really fulfilling to see like your team grow and teams at Delta grow and utilize these capabilities that all in all make the company better in the end, right? So it's a really valuable role, I think. Yeah.
It is. Don't downplay it. It's great. I'm thrilled to see it. Because I think, unfortunately, and you probably know this, right? Women get pigeonholed into, okay, well, she's a developer and she's one of those women developers.
Yeah.
And they stay and that's it.
Yeah.
They're not going to go beyond that. And then there are some people, men and women, who say, look, this developer thing is great, but really to kind of fulfill my career goals, I need more, right? And so they often get an MBA, or they go, if they haven't already gotten a business degree, undergrad or something like that, they'll go back and get their degree.
Right, yeah.
So nothing to be ashamed of, or, be damn proud of it.
Yeah.
But here at GitLab, were you presenting?
Yes.
What did you present on?
So I talked about how at Delta, we started our cloud native journey about 2 years ago, but I talked about how we avoided the vendor lock through leveraging platform as a services and providing like tools that plug into really any public cloud. And really how achieving workflow portability is an important thing to do when embarking upon your cloud native journey. Yep.
Cool. Not asking you to name names of other tools. God knows we're not going to do that. But, so cloud native, I'm assuming it's Google, AWS, Microsoft Azure, all the usual suspects. And do they all work with all of them, you think, or?
Well, we're leveraging OpenShift, which I can say. We're leveraging that at Delta, and essentially we picked it because we had the ability to put it into the public cloud, all of the public clouds. So that gives us the flexibility to pick and choose who we leverage and when. So
using Kubernetes then with OpenShift?
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very exciting times.
Obviously at DevOps.com we're Switzerland, right? We'll cover everything. But OpenShift and Red Hat now, which is IBM, it's an interesting, they've really they do make it easy to use.
They do.
Whatever you want.
And the great thing, coming like Delta, we were very heavy users of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, so it was natural for us to go that way. And I think that what we've seen is like adoption is easier when you have the familiarity of the OS. So it's been really nice.
Yeah, no, it's a nice path and well worth it. Anyway, Jasmine, thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you, Alan.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the day here at GitLab
Yes,
Commit.
beautiful day. I will do that.
Yeah, and we'll check in.
Great.
Delta's not often mentioned as a DevOps powerhouse, but now that you have a center of excellence, we should stand up and take notice.
Look out.
All righty. Hey, Jasmine James, Delta's DevOps Center of Excellence here at GitLab Commit in Brooklyn. This is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com and DigitalAnarchist.live. Enjoy your day. We should have another guest up shortly.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV on the Digital Anarchist Network. Hope you enjoyed the Jasmine James interview, and like me, and maybe you agree, she's really just a budding superstar in the DevOps community. Speaking of superstars in the DevOps community, though, our next interview, it features two superstars two of the original. And if you count the interviewer, three of the original folks who've actually been in the DevOps community from almost from the get-go. One is my Digital Anarchist co-founder, John Willis, who, of course, was at the very first DevOps days in Ghent, Belgium, and then, along with Damon Edwards, put on the first DevOps days here in the U.S. in Mountain View. Jane Grohl, my partner in the DevOps Institute, interviews our guests in this. And Jane was also at the very first DevOps days in Mountain View, actually, one of the few women there. And then joining John and Jane is Andrew Clay Schaefer. Of course, Andrew was one of the founders of Puppet. And since then, has had a remarkable career and is now, along with John, over at Red Hat. And this is an interview that was done at the Cloud Native Con, KubeCon in San Diego back in November of 2019. John and Andrew had just announced they were joining Red Hat, and Jane had a chance to catch up with them. And John and Andrew kind of give us why it was important to join Red Hat, what their mission is, and really what they're trying to do in the DevOps community. So with that said, let me bring you back now to KubeCon in San Diego with Jane Grohl interviewing John Willis and Andrew Clay Schaefer.
This is Digital Anarchist at KubeCon, Cloud Native Con, San Diego 2019.
Hi everyone, it's Jane Grohl, DevOps Institute here at KubeCon for Digital Anarchist. I'm here with really two of my favorite folks from the DevOps space, Andrew Clay Schaefer, John Willis. Welcome, now of Red Hat, right?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, and kind of excited to talk about this new initiative that you guys are doing, this team that you're forming for Red Hat. Both of you have been such strong influencers in the DevOps community and really helping to shape. I mean, look at where we are today. We're at a place where there's 12,000 other people.
That's crazy.
Right? It's a little crazy from, way back. I think I met you, I know I met John in 2012, so, that's a long time ago. So talk a little bit about what you're doing with Red Hat and sort of what your goals and perspectives of where we are today compared to your vision of where we might have been a few years ago.
That's a lot to unpack. All right, well, I'll start.
Okay.
I think, one of the things, I say this, I've known Andrew for years. I sort of he's molded a lot of the ways I've thought, and that's a big thing. Like, I don't want to say that I think I'm a big deal, but I'm a deal, right? And for somebody in this industry to sort of have that much influence on the way I've thought over the years, Andrew is one of the key people. And when he talked to me about, hey, do you want to go over to sort of Red Hat, I honestly said there was very few people where I was like, are you out of your mind? And then he said, no, John, I think we can do something really big. And we've been friends for years, and Andrew's always talked about the things that have gone right in our industry and the things that sort of we still get very frustrated about. And so I thought about, like, as we came in this thing, I said, we've been doing DevOps for 10 years. We kind of got it figured out, right? Like, anybody can do DevOps. 3 books, 10 videos, and like you're doing DevOps, right? The deploys. The question is, what's the hard problem the next 10 years? And I thought, bringing in Kevin Baer and Jay Bloom and putting us together to say, can we attempt to look at this problem of what is the next 10 years of this stuff, right?
In some ways, I think what I want to do is timeless, or what I hope we can do is timeless. And in other ways, I would say some of these problems were already solved, and we're just continuing the work that was done by Deming or done by Akoff or some of these other people, and for whatever reason, that gets recycled, or the autocrats come back and take over again. When you look at the context that we're having this conversation in, we're at KubeCon, 12,000 people, and it's really focused on this tool. And we've had other kind of tool-centric conversations around the evolution of DevOps for the last 10 years. We, by the way, just had the 10-year anniversary of DevOps Days a few weeks ago. And one of the things that I was kind of frustrated with, but also I think is the opportunity to change, is the tool-centric thing is what it is. It's concrete, people can see it, they can focus on it. But if you take the tool, and right now the hot tool is Kubernetes, and you put that into an organization, but you don't change the actual practices, the actual processes of not just the developers and the operators from the kind of DevOps divide in that conversation, but also the upstream inputs from product management and the business, and then the downstream requirements from security, compliance, then you end up with this world where, and I've seen this firsthand doing the work I've done for the last 10 years, where you're managing a container deployment with the same process and the same ticket system that you manage your VMs with, that you inherited from managing the bare metal deployments. And so now the rate limiting problem that you have to solve is actually this process that you inherited from managing decisions that were on the order of hundreds of thousands of dollars minimum, that you're now applying to decisions that are on the order of pennies. And so to me, and I think every single cloud provider has this as their rate limit for their customers to be able to utilize their new capabilities with their technology investments. And the combination of circumstances put me into conversations with the leadership in Red Hat, and I felt like there was a fantastic opportunity to kind of put an investment into creating this team and do that work and see where it goes with the backing of someone like Red Hat from a technology perspective. And then in some sense we're also IBM. We're part of IBM. So that narrative and that opportunity put in front of me, I thought it was a pretty easy choice to take that step.
And the other thing too, I think was just interesting is, like, if you sort of listen to the vendors that have sort of good tech and they seem to be doing it the right way, and you sort of sit down or maybe have a beer, the thing they'll tell you is their problem is their customers aren't ready or fast enough or can't adapt. And so that's their sort of limitation. It's not that we don't have great tech. I mean, look around this place. I mean, some of it's probably crazy. A lot of it's probably pretty awesome. But at the end of the day, the real blockage is that the customers, they may just dump in all this technology, but the truth of the matter is even if you sell all this stuff to a company, if they can't adapt it, they can't find the people, they don't get the sort of behavior patterns to change, then it slows the vendors in the technology and industry. So I think part of like what we're thinking about is like how can we sort of, Andrew's used the term social technical, a few times over the years, and I like it because that's the problem you look at. You look at sort of not just the technology, and we all know this.
You have to think about everything as a system.
That's right.
So the technology does not exist in isolation from the social. The people are the ones that give you the reliability. They're the ones that give you the functionality. And so the opportunity that we have and that really the industry has, and in some sense, this is what cloud native means to me. It's like taking and DevOps, Agile, whatever, it's like unlocking the human potential to be creative and be intelligent, leverage that intelligence to solve problems.
Yeah, our mantra is to advance the human elements of DevOps, right? So when you start to look at all the technology that's around it, it's all fantastic. We're so busy updating our technology, right? Are we leaving the humans behind, right? Or are we not considering the human element, which is really going to drive innovation? I mean, at the end, at least today, it's going to drive innovation. And so,
Till Alpha Zero takes over.
Yeah, well, and hopefully not while I'm still a working person. But in the early days, we always talked about culture, right? That culture was important. But sometimes culture is kind of reflected as being very surgical. Like, oh, we can detach the old culture and put it in, and that humans don't work that way, right? So I think that, talking about process, talking about the human potential, I'm really excited about hearing about that because I think that representing the human growth is an important part of anything that any of us are doing in this space.
And the thing too also I think about is that like when you think about systems thinking, you talk about Deming if we go there, but sort of, and you talk about social technical systems, right, which is really sort of a complex systems thinking way of looking at it. I hate to say this, but people who are considered thought leaders, right, which is a terrible term, but like for lack of a better way to describe it, one of our responsibilities of not just us, but all the other ones in our field that we all know and they're sort of friends of ours, is we have to be helpful to sort of calibrate that sort of course correction. It's a sort of like there's a lot of technology coming in and there's social, and I think as leaders, you have to be able to straighten out the line a little bit so that you don't, maybe it's late in the day, too many meetings, but is there one of our roles I think is to sort of, if people respect our opinion, to be able to say, how are we getting this technical social thing right? And I think our leadership, and again, this is why I respect Andrew so much, and then Kevin Bear and Jay Bloom, he's crazy. I get paid to be around ridiculously smart people. And the idea is that, like, that's sort of, like, we think a lot about that. Like, how do we get this thing right for everybody, right? In a way that isn't too far technical. I don't know.
So I think not everyone always makes the journey is one thing, but there's patterns that I've seen for the last 10 years, kind of starting with the work that I was involved with at Puppet, seeing the cloud and OpenStack, Cloud Foundry, Kubernetes. The human, us as humans, tends to attach our identity to the task we're performing. And in Western culture, it's even representative in our surnames. And when you come into, we used the word culture a bit earlier, and you tell people that they're going to do things a different way, one's like, well, no one likes to be told they're doing things wrong, right? And like, we're making money or whatever, it seems like it's working. And then two, they feel like you're erasing their identity. If their task is going to go away, then who am I?
Right.
And I've done this before, I know how to do this, and now you're going to make me someone new. So the trick in a lot of this, or what I feel helps people kind of make those journeys, or more people make those journeys, is instead of framing it as this thing that you are going to eliminate, that you're going to change because it's wrong, find ways to attach that person's story to becoming a hero in the new version. Everyone wants to be a hero in their own story. And some of this is social engineering, if you will, maybe harder than the technology engineering part, but that attachment to the higher part of the mission. So if everyone's focused on twiddling the bits, like I'm a sysadmin, I'm a developer, I know this thing about Java, I know this thing about Kubernetes, and everyone will kind of locally optimize on the thing that they're an expert in, then that's one level of the mission. Like I want to be the best sysadmin, I want to be the best developer, I want to master kubectl, great. When you look at the big picture, what organizations are trying to do is not configure servers. It's not pass the test. It's to do things for the customer, or when you start talking to some of the interesting government, there's missions, and some of those missions are maybe even more meaningful than money. And if you can get everyone in those roles, each of which have expertise, each of which have contributions, to attach themselves not to the specialization, but to those higher outcomes, those higher missions, then they'll start to align with each other because they want to align with that mission instead of localizing for their version of expertise.
And it's funny because we've all had a chance to travel all around the world, and if you learn anything about people,
DevOps has been very good to me.
Yes, same here, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I find really interesting traveling all around the world and talking to so many different communities, I know you guys have done the same thing, is at the end of the day, people are the same, right? At the end of the day, what do they want to do? They want to be successful at hopefully their
Everyone
profession.
wants to be a hero in their story.
Everybody wants to be a hero in their story, and everyone wants to feel good about the fact that not only just professionally, but personally, I feel like I'm a good person, I feel like I do a good job, I feel like I'm respected, I want to take care of my family or my personal life or whatever. And so when you look at that from I want to be the hero of my own story, I want to feel really good about what I'm doing. And I think that as we start to look at this DevOps journey, or whatever else you want to call it, transformation journey, I think now finally we're starting to realize that the human transformation is as important as the technical transformation, right? And there has to be some intentional steps taken. You can call it social engineering, but there have to be some intentional steps taken to help guide people so that they have that continued good feeling about what they want to do and how they feel about their self-identity.
So I was going to talk about I spent a fair amount of time as a novice trying to study this burnout thing. You look at Christina Mazak's work, right, and some of the so it's the MBI, it's the Mazak burnout inventory, and there's sort of three variables that they look at, right, and one is sort of exhaustion, which is actually I've had talks with her that maybe that's sort of overrated, even though it's like all the oxygen and certain burnout. Because in our field, for the most part, we're all pretty well paid, and we can recognize sort of death camp paces, and I think we have a little freedom there. The second is a cynicism, which was I get so tired of everybody else, everybody's an idiot, I know what I'm doing, and that's part. But the one I think that goes back to this health of like the social engineering and how do you get sort of healthy social technicism is efficacy. And I do think in our industry, we lose sight of that. People they get caught in situations where there's such complex systems, the technology is complex, the responsibilities are complex, and they don't have that sort of, I'm going to wake up and have a good day. They're questioning their efficacy. And I think that, to the extent that burnout is a problem in our industry, which I think it is, I think that that's all part of that sort of super mesh of how do we get sort of healthy, contributing workforces that are blending the technology, and it is having people feel like their efficacy level is that I know I did a great job, and everybody around me knows I did a good job today.
When people talk about digital transformation, what they really, really mean is actually people transformation.
Right.
You can't take advantage of technology without getting those people to unlock that creativity. And the sad fact is, for the most part, and this is going back to the comment I made about the people of the past that have thought about this problem before I was even born, there's a prevailing mindset and process around management in our industry, in all industries, which is rooted in factory work and the Industrial Revolution. And if you want to compete in the knowledge economy and really unlock the creative intellect of the people that you're you're employing to do that, then you got to move into this new kind of mindset. You got to move into this sort of left-shifted understanding of what enables humans to attach their passion and their expertise to those higher goals.
So I'm gonna throw out a suggestion. We're hearing about service mesh, right? Everybody's talking about service mesh. Let's talk about human mesh, right? I mean, really kind of looking at it as we have to look at the fact that underneath all of this, now you also realize we have multi-generational, right? We have a multi-generational workforce, and so that makes this human mesh even more
We're
interesting.
supposed to make a okay boomer joke.
You can make an okay boomer joke to me, baby, because I am a boomer, and I'm proud of it, right? But I'm at the end of the boomers, but still, yeah. I mean, I think when you're really looking at the complexity of it, and I really hope, let's go back to Red Hat for just a minute. I really hope that, listening to you speak about this, I'm really excited to hear that process is a human, is at least, it's replicated in automation, right? Social, social engineering, or really kind of the human condition or the human potential.
One of the things that made this possible was conversations that I had with Jim Whitehurst, the CEO of Red Hat, and he wrote a book that was published by Harvard Business Review about open organizations, and he'd come to some of these similar conclusions to the ideas. He actually watched the There Is No Talent Shortage talk that I did at Velocity a few years ago, and we had this really intense conversation about how he'd come to these realizations from this open organization leadership. And he was CEO of this company that just got bought for $34 billion. When he was sort of resonating with me on these ideas about what was possible to transform and unlock the human potential to apply passion to solve problems, and not just problems for like, oh, here's this business, but if you really look at what's happening on this planet, there's a lot of hard problems that individually none of us can solve, but collectively maybe we have a chance.
And just I keep saying, it was Andrew's the only one who could have got me in the door. But quite frankly, what he wanted to do is have me talk to Jim pretty early in the process. And I got to say, that was really a second hurdle. And the way he thought, his book, the way he sort of responded to the way Andrew was thinking, and then he asked me what I was thinking about. And I just love this opportunity. We're trying to do a big thing on a big stage. And I don't think we've been given sort of an opportunity with a leader that, like, honestly, I didn't know much about him until sort of I walked in the door, and I've just been, we've met a lot of CEOs over our years. I like the way this guy thinks. I think the stage we're on is big. So I think we're going to have a lot of fun. Let's see what happens.
So what's the next steps?
Baby steps.
Watch
Baby
this
steps.
space. Yeah, good.
Coming soon.
I mean, we're in the honeymoon phase of a new relationship. We're learning a lot about what Red Hat is. I mean, we knew certain things. I've been in and around this technology for a while, but when you get into the reality of it, we're going to get involved with the customers. We're going to help the internal people, and I think like the actual day-to-day of what we're going to do for the first phase is we're going to try to prove some of these things in the small. We're going to pick a few customers and get involved really deeply with designing some of the stuff that they do together with our technology to leverage that technology investment. And then as we prove our hypothesis true, then we'll get the opportunity to do more and more experiments and take the results and apply them to other organizations.
I'm really excited to see. I think, again, kind of watching you both from my early days in DevOps, right, which, in dog years would, extrapolate out to I'd be really much older than I am.
I'm starting to get gray hair.
Yeah. Starting to, okay, we won't go in that direction yet, but kind of watching the evolution over the last, I say, for me, probably 2012, 7 years, right? And then, sort of how this became a thing. And then, watching the two of you, and I don't know you as well as I know John, but really kind of, see, and I know Kevin, right? So, seeing that kind of, brain trust. I have really high expectations, no pressure, guys, in terms of what's going to come out. Anyhow, thanks for spending some time. I really appreciate going on camera with this.
It's a privilege. Thanks for having us.
No, thank you, really. Jane Grohl, DevOps Institute, here with Andrew Clay Schaefer and John Willis of Red Hat. We're here at KubeCon on behalf of Digital Anarchists. Thanks, everyone.
There you go.
ContainerJournal.com is the leading online destination for centralized computing-related content. ContainerJournal.com covers all aspects of software containers, from container management, data management for containers, container security, networking for containers, to the entire container ecosystem, Kubernetes, microservices, serverless, and more. ContainerJournal.com has the largest selection of container-related news, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.containerjournal.com to learn more. ContainerJournal.com is operated by MediaOps Inc., the team behind DevOps.com, Digital Anarchist, SecurityBoulevard.com, DevOps Connect, and DevOpsDozen.com.
Hey everyone, we're back. Thanks for staying with us. That was a great interview actually with John Willis and Andrew Clay Schaefer from the last KubeCon over in Lisbon, Portugal, and thanks to Jane Grohl for conducting that interview. And John, Andrew, along with Kevin Baer and Jade Bloom are doing some great things over at the Red Hat team, so kudos to them. We'll have John and Andrew and the folks on, especially as we get closer now to the TechStrong conference on June 4th. But for now, I wanted to jump into some news coverage for today. And, again, highlighting what we're seeing out there. I know many of you are at home and you're watching the regular mainstream news, and we're seeing these numbers going up and the death tolls rising. But let me just say that in some ways, look, the more testing we're doing, of course the numbers are going to go up. But that's not necessarily a bad thing as we seek to kind of flatten this curve. So again, I'm always pretty optimistic. I'm hoping that this really starts giving us a little bit more insight and starts giving us something to grab onto as a handle here as we continue living under the COVID cloud, so to speak. Wanted to just highlight a couple of things. First of all, on the DevOps.com, the Eclipse Foundation is moving forward with their THEA program. This is an article by Mike Vizard. I really think it is worthwhile reading. And then Humio, in response to this whole COVID thing, has added unlimited storage for log management services. And this is an important thing, right? I know all of you are tired of receiving the letter from the CEO about how my company's responding under COVID. But we're seeing a bunch of other things too, though. Last week we highlighted that Qualys is making a free endpoints vulnerability solution available. Humio adds unlimited log, as this article, another I think that was a Vizard story as well, is out there. So many of our tech companies responding to this by making their solutions either free or unlimited. I mean, where would we be without the Zooms and so forth of the world? So, kudos to the tech companies out there who are responding to this in a positive way at a time when people are talking about cutting back, right, on marketing spends and spend in general and headcounts. These companies are actually giving back. They're letting their products loose into the market to, deliver more value for people as we deal with this. So good for Humio for doing that. I wanted to highlight another article which I highlighted yesterday as well, and that's George Hume's article on analysts and IT spend. I think this is a metric that we're all going to be watching over the next 4 to 6 weeks, which is what are we spending on IT spend, number one, and then within the tech industry itself, what are we seeing spent on marketing? I've reached out to my friend Ken Rutsky, who is Cybersecurity Marketers Dojo and a longtime cybersecurity marketer. Hope to have Ken on maybe next week, and let's see if maybe Ken is seeing any trends around that. But it bears watching, and I think it's going to be interesting. We're going to come back to DevOps.com at the end of my news segment here, but I wanted to highlight a few other things, and that is, look, we're dealing with things like virtual desktops and VPNs, right? These are traditional security sort of things. And I'm talking now to my help desk friends out there, my folks at IT is Code, another section within DevOps.com, but that's security things too. You guys are probably dealing with more what you may consider rudimentary calls than you've ever dealt with before, as people are really settling into this working from home thing. And kudos to you for your patience, understanding, and answering these sometimes, I'm sure, elementary questions. But you got to understand that we've got to keep the wheels moving. And just like, God bless the first responders and the medical professionals who are treating the sick and dying in the world. These tech support, the help desk people, my IT is Code crowd, what you're doing, keeping the wheels rolling is vital. I'm not saying you're saving lives like these other folks are, but it's really vital to stop the wheels from falling off. So kudos to you. There's a bunch of articles on Security Boulevard around this. It's hard with Security Boulevard to tell you what's out there, because there's 60 articles a day coming out. So you really got to kind of just skim the front page there and look at the topics and find out what, if anything, tickles you on that. Also, 4 big announcements in Container Journal today. Container Journal is a site where we'll usually put 1 at most 2 articles a day, but we're really starting to see a lot of advancements as Kubernetes and this whole cloud native system becomes the dominant stack, if you will, in terms of deployment. So if you're at home, but you and you want to stay up on what's going on in this cloud native world, I really recommend Container Journal for you. Check out the 4 articles today. I think Vizard covered them all. But do check them out. I highly, highly encourage you to do so. The last article I wanted to showcase on our news segment today is an interview that I did with CloudBees CEO Sasha Labouré. Sasha's a friend. We did this interview about a week ago, actually. We got it edited. It went live on DevOps.com today. And I'm going to show you that in just a minute. Before we do, though, I wanted to just highlight one other thing for you, and that is our DevOps chat. If you're on SoundCloud or iTunes or Spotify or Stitcher or whatever you listen to audio podcasts on, they're also available on our OTT channels, the DevOps.com channels, as well as on on DigitalAnarchist.com. We probably have about 200 podcasts up there, always putting up new podcasts. These are not videos, these are audios. But if podcasts are your thing, they're short. They're usually 20 minutes. Just this past week, we did one with Red Hat, Kristen Newcomer at Red Hat on DevSecOps and OpenShift. That Qualys story that I mentioned about releasing their endpoint security vulnerability tool for free. There's a great podcast on that. There's another great one on the state of open source vulnerabilities based on the report on that from my friends at White Source. We've got a great interview with Mitchell Ashley and Andy Mann on what's data privacy, what's what is your data really worth? And then I also wanted to highlight a contrast security podcast with Jeff Williams, CTO for Contrast Security, on their new route intelligence. So check them all out. We actually have another podcast going live tomorrow, April 2nd, on DevOps Chats. Can't tell you more about it because it's under embargo, but do check it out in the morning tomorrow. But for now, let's head back. As I mentioned, I did this interview with Sacha Labouré. It was originally set up to talk about what the last year was about with CloudBees, but it really turned into a forward-facing conversation about what's the next year going to be about for CloudBees and how is COVID and everything playing into this. So let me run to that right now. I'll come back after. This is Sacha Labouré, CEO of CloudBees.
This is Digital Anarchist.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel, Editor-in-Chief of DevOps.com, CEO of MediaOps, and thanks for joining us for another video special edition DevOps Chat. In today's video special edition, we're joined by Sacha Labouré. Sacha, as many of you already know, is the CEO of CloudBees, and Sacha is coming to us today from home in Switzerland. So Sacha, welcome.
Thank you, Alan, for having me today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. There's always an open invitation for you here, Sacha. So, Sacha, let's start with this. CloudBees put out some news this week. Of course, the world has changed somewhat in the last week to 10 days, but we'll get to that later. But let's talk about the recent news from CloudBees.
Yeah, a lot happened. Actually, I was reading this note as we were crafting it, and I was like, "Are we talking about the last 2 or 3 years or what?" Because last year was pretty filled, right? We had big growth first, but that's kind of the output of an engine. That's how you measure the output. We had more than 55% increase in ARR. But I think more importantly for us is what we've done. We had Electric Cloud and whole out team join CloudBees, so expanding the portfolio, expanding our strategy. We've been known as the enterprise Jenkins company in the past, and now we're clearly moving, growing beyond that. It doesn't mean that it's changing our love and roots with Jenkins, but we're definitively bigger than this today. We've made it on the Forbes Cloud 100, which is a very big honor for us to be recognized as a leading cloud vendor. We had investment from HSBC, one of our biggest customer, to invest in the company meant a lot. A lot took place. For me, what's very important, if I look retrospectively at what happened in CloudBees story, we started, if you remember, 10 years ago, because we just had our 10 years anniversary. We started as a platform as a service vendor, born in the cloud, wanted to simplify and help simplify software delivery. Then moved to be this enterprise Jenkins company, and as we grew and expanded. You have to rewire kind of who you are and redefine your image and so on. So that's kind of the CloudBees 3.0 as we call it internally. And I feel like last year we executed a lot of absolutely key steps to make that happen, to have a much different positioning, and that clarifies our strategy overall. So I'm extremely happy about what has been achieved by the team last year.
Sure. Well, first of all, congratulations, because look, just a 50 or 55%, annual revenue increase is by and large itself a tremendous accomplishment. But as you said, there was so much more, right? That almost is the end product, but the means were, bringing in feature flags and the whole Electric Cloud team and portfolio, as well as moving, to a huge DevOps world in San Francisco at the Moscone Center, and another one of course in Lisbon in Portugal. And really, And also, if I'm not mistaken, it was only in the last year that we moved you moved, CloudBees moved Jenkins to the CDF, part of the Linux Foundation, and the whole rise of the CDF during this past year, is another kind of big. This was a big project, a big event that. But as you said, it moves CloudBees from being more than just the enterprise Jenkins company to really the company that's going to define software delivery management, right? SDM. And I know that, there's plenty of work going on around that as well. Anyone who follows us here on DevOps.com knows, we've spoken to several CloudBees people about SDM and so forth, and looking forward to seeing that. So, the obvious questions is where do you go from here, Sasha?
Yeah, so I think we have achieved a lot last year in assembling a lot of this strategy, but now I think it's going to get clearer to the outside world. I just committed a blog explaining kind of that strategy because I feel it's not necessarily well understood still. So. For us, the way we see the world is there is kind of a factory that exists where you create software, right? It's very much like a factory, except you don't create assets, you just create virtual assets, and we call it software delivery automation, and we give it a name because I think it's a good way to name this environment. That's where CI/CD is, that's where feature flag is, and so on, right? So that's all about the making of software, the crafting of software. And so at this layer, we obviously have a very strong offering between our Jenkins-based offering as well as Electric Flow that we acquired last year. So together, right, that gives us a CI/CD strategy that's very strong. But at the same time now, what we announced is that we're building the SaaS version of SDA, right? So how you do CI/CD in a purely SaaS fashion. So we had an announcement last year at DevOps World in Lisbon with Google. We're working very closely with Google on that offering. So the goal is to have really this factory available as a SaaS or as a software, one based on Flow and Jenkins, the other based on Jenkins X. And then on top of that, there is SDM, and SDM is really how do you manage this factory, right? And we see a lot of companies where initially they have this proof of concept with SDA and CI/CD. They learn how to go faster. They build up their DevOps practice and so on. But at some point, they realize that it's going faster, and it's changing all over the place. And that's great. That's what they wanted in the first place. But how do you really understand what's going on? How do you extract insights out of this? Where do you see where you can unlock value, while at the same time keeping peace of mind, right? This is a management layer that exists in factories as well, but that does not exist in software delivery. So for us, if you truly want to have mature software delivery, you need to have solid tools to actually do the delivery. That's SDA. And then you need extremely solid tools to have visibility and control over that delivery, and that's SDM. So for us, software delivery is this mix of SDA and SDM, essentially.
Excellent. So this SDA is sort of new to me. That's good. So it's SDA with SDM sort of sitting on top of that.
Yeah, and the reason we decided to name it something, SDM, we talk a lot about it. I think for us, it's a way to say, the rest, everything that's not about SDM, everything that's about doing things, we call it SDA. It includes a lot more things, right? If you think about all of the testing framework, all of the tools you're using in the process of building software, all of that, you could argue, is part of this overall automation of software delivery.
Got it. So, the good news is with the Electric Cloud team and the teams from the other acquisitions, you have the nucleus of the personnel you need to do this kind of thing. How do you, at the same time though, Sasha, when we look at let's call it, the DevOps market, the CI/CD market, you have, CloudBees is one of the leaders. There are others. and a lot of people chasing after this. How does CloudBees' kind of vision of how SDA and SDM, right, kind of one sits on top of the other, if you will. Well, one is at a higher level than the other, right? SDA really is nuts and bolts. SDM is managing the whole thing. Where do you see the market on this, Sasha?
Yeah, it's very interesting. We see some vendors interested in providing the full end-to-end experience, right? We've seen that for a couple of years now. You have a couple of vendors really chasing this opportunity to be covering everything from end to end. And I think it has a lot of value, especially for some use cases where you truly want to get started quickly, and you don't necessarily want to make special. And so that's good. Our view is different, though. Our view of the market is that we feel like a lot of the organizations and the bigger enterprises are definitively our market, they're focused on embracing a lot of the existing assets they have, right? They have a lot of different tools. Every team is doing things slightly differently. You have mobile tools, you have backend Java teams, you have all kinds of things taking place, microservices and so on. And so we don't think that those organizations necessarily want to have a vendor come and tell them, all right, that's it. Those are the tools you're going to be using, end of story, live with it, right? We think that serves one purpose, but it's not the market we're really helping. The market, again, we're helping. They have lots of tools out there, and they want a way to have a backbone, a strong backbone that can orchestrate all of that, but then that can embrace all of the different tools and processes that those teams want to use. Because we know that by definition that developers like to change. They like to jump on a new tool because they think it's going to serve their needs better. So they like best of breed solutions. So for us, thanks to our extreme pluggability, to be able to hook into the systems is very important. And then do the same thing from an SDM standpoint, right? When you want to capture those signals to get control and insight into what's taking place. We're not saying, hey, we're gonna provide you insight into how we are doing. Obviously, you need to know how we're gonna be doing, but you need to understand how things are working across the portfolio of different tools and processes. So this embrace, don't replace is kind of our tagline. And we very much want to have this opportunity to push freedom in those accounts. They should go fast. They should go securely and so on. But they know better than we know what tools they should be using. So we want to hook into those, not replace them.
Excellent. Sasha, I feel like we have to mention, certainly in the last 2 weeks here in the U.S., I don't know if it's, the same over in Switzerland and the rest of Europe, but the world's changed, hopefully short term, not too much long term, but it's a different environment we're all finding ourselves in now, in kind of unprecedented, uncharted waters. So I wanted to ask you, you've been a CEO of several technology startups. And Sasha, you've been through what I've been through, right? We've been through the Great Recession, the dot-com burst, and the bubble bursting, and the whole rise of dot-com. This just feels different. Wanted to get your take on what do you think this means for CloudBees in the market? B, any advice for people listening, watching, what clues, especially as it pertains to the software development world, developers and DevOps team members out here. What can you tell them? What would you tell them?
So I think we should look long term. There is a lot of anxiety. We see a lot of anxiety because it's a big change and we've never seen that. And so people should keep a long view on this and realize that in a few weeks, maybe at most in a few months, things will be very different. And it's a way to learn and to adapt and to work differently. CloudBees has always been a distributed company, so this change was relatively easy for us, but for lots of organizations, it's new. And this has been a great opportunity for lots of organizations to start working from home. So I think it's a great opportunity. I think I'm pretty optimistic as a guy, and so I think it's great to see this extreme lockdown we're seeing right now. But it's not going to last. The reason, if you look at China, for example, they're back in business now. We're seeing some medicine being efficient, like chlorodyne now and others. And so, you know, everybody wants to solve that problem. There is way too much at stake for us to just be underground and wait for things to happen. So I just think there might be local anxiety, but let's all try to raise our eyes and look at the bigger picture. I think things should go back to normal much sooner than we think. That's my conviction, at least.
I agree with you, and I applaud it. I also think, you know, with the amount of resources being brought to bear here, and the brain power on it, you know, in one sense, if this can't bring the world together, I don't know what will, because at the end of the day, we're all humans, and this is a human issue. So, yep. Anyway, Sasha, I want to thank you for taking time out. I know things are probably a little, you know, with everything going on, you've got a big company there to run, and now you probably have 1,000 different offices to manage, right, with everyone from home and everything. So thanks for joining us. Congratulations on this momentum and what's going on at CloudBees. You know, we look to CloudBees as a leader in the space, and there's no reason to expect that it won't continue to be so.
Thank you, Alan. Always great talking to you.
Great. Okay, Sasha Labere, CEO, CloudBees. This is Alan Schimmel for DevOps.com. You just watched a DevOps chat. Hey, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that interview with Sasha Labere. Of course, CloudBees has made tremendous, they were always kind of an industry darling in DevOps, but they continue to stay at the top of the market. The full interview and analysis is available on DevOps.com. For our next segment, I wanted to highlight an interview
at Appian World, but because of the coronavirus, we are doing this virtual. So Michael, thank you for joining me today. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Shelley.
Excellent, excellent. Why don't we start out by you just tell me a little bit about yourself, about your background, and you know, what we're, besides the sunshine, what we're missing by not being live at Appian World.
Yeah, well, you know, here we are in an upgraded, fully immersive digital experience. So we're not going to miss a whole lot. I started Appian 20 years ago. I founded the company with 3 friends. We all still run the company, but a fair bit has changed in the last 20 years. Appian is a low-code automation platform, and we're used by hundreds of the largest organizations in the world to automate their mission-critical business processes and undertake digital transformation projects. So launching new business lines, launching new product lines, delivering outstanding customer service. These are all things people do with the Appian platform in all industries, primarily financial services, healthcare, life sciences, and government. And we went public 3 years ago now. Okay. And you know, that's been great. The growth has been tremendous. Obviously, the world has noticed low-code automation, and low-code platforms are increasingly the default way you undertake a new project in IT to automate a workflow or build a new application. It's the preferred approach, rather than trying to overly customize some off-the-shelf software that won't really fit your needs, or undertaking a risky, fully custom development project. Low-code, new technique that allows developers to do what they do very well, but on a shared model with the business, so that the business can take ownership of you know, their business rules, their business process, and together they can actually do tremendously valuable things.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So your company was going to be having some announcements at Appian World that I know that you've kind of been kind of filtering out over the last day or two. But tell me a little bit about the Appian RPA, which I understand is one of the bigger announcements.
Yeah, so Appian's long been known for automating human workflow, and by combining it with artificial intelligence and integration techniques to provide a full automation experience for complex business processes. But what was still missing was our own native RPA capability. Okay. So for years, we've partnered with the best in RPA, Blue Prism, UiPath, Automation Anywhere, and we have a very comprehensive environment for modeling an end-to-end business process and delegating tasks to humans, bots, or algorithms so that you can fully unify the modern workforce. But what we went out and did is then we also acquired a leading RPA technology and fully integrated and unified it into the Appian stack. So the company we acquired, Novare, was already ranked in the Gartner Peer Insights as the top rated, top reviewed RPA product. And it's a fantastic match for what Appian tries to do because it's cloud-based, it's secure, and it's open. It runs on Linux or Windows. So when you're scaling large RPA deployments, you can cost effectively do it on Linux. And it really checks a lot of the boxes that CIOs are looking for in rationalizing their automation investments. And what our customers were really asking us to do was to provide a full stack automation solution that still works great with whatever existing digital workforce may be in place in some of their departments or divisions. Okay,
so so you're basically enhancing your automation platform. So what does this bring that besides that kind of that more native integration? What does this mean for maybe DevOps teams?
Well, for DevOps teams, here's finally a bot programming that can fit directly into your typical DevOps deployment pipeline. So the programming of the bot can be handled with and through an automated deployment pipeline with the traditional DevOps tools like Jenkins for automatic deployment management, and so that's really one advantage. Another is you can actually use RPA to automate certain DevOps tasks, and so having the ability to quickly script any kind of tedious, manual, repetitive work that's part of your testing phases or part of your deployment phases it's really powerful. I mean, developers know better than anyone. If you do something once, it's all right, but once you do it twice, you're already getting bored. And if you have to do it a third time, you probably should just code it. And bots give you a very powerful, fast way to automate a lot of your DevOps environment.
Are you seeing a big uptick with using bots in DevOps environments? I'm just kind of curious.
It's definitely an emerging area. I think that there has been traditionally a large usage of bots on the testing phase.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing it sprinkle into other areas. Appian as a platform is also in our latest release introducing a whole new deployments module. So we are providing a lot of the DevSecOps automation inside of the low-code environment itself, and then integrations are available if a team already has a fully mature automated pipeline and you want to integrate Appian with your source code repository, your Bitbucket, your GitLab, your Jenkins, your pipeline. But you shouldn't need to have those external tools to use a low-code platform effectively in a DevOps environment. And so Appian gives you this way to connect your environments, do CI/CD, link patching and deployments in one universal way, and reuse them. And so that's what we've done, along with the kind of guardrails and assistance that you'd expect a low-code platform to provide. So every new application in Appian can be automatically health checked every sprint to compare to Appian best practices, as the platform has learned from all of the experience of how it performs with everyone else's applications. And we also do really nice things like security guardrails. The most common mistake developers make in a object-oriented environment is to overlook some of the security permissions on an object in a large package of hundreds of thousands of objects. And so Appian automates that kind of checking for you and auditing so that you're always in control.
So are these features something that your users were asking for specifically, or was it just kind of the natural migration, if you will, or the natural evolution of the technology?
Yeah, well, it's a little of both. Certainly, 5 years ago, people were using low code as a fast new way to do something different, to build unique software when they couldn't find an easy solution off the shelf. But today, enterprises are adopting low code as a platform, and they're trying to enable from the start, how are they going to govern and control let's say 8, 9, 10, 12 different work streams simultaneously. And so naturally, the DevSecOps questions arise more readily. And it's been our biggest customers who have been at the forefront of asking us to automate some of these tasks and activities, and really drove us to include that one-click deployment and the kind of guardrails that make DevSecOps not just fast and but also reliable, consistent, and make sure that teams are able to deliver quality software as fast as the business is asking for it.
All right. Well, that makes total sense. So who are your customers then? I mean, do you guys have a particular type of profile of customer or vertical that works better for you?
Actually, not really. We are a true horizontal platform, and we're applicable to any industry. But to give you some examples of our customers, it's everything from Ryder Truck, an old established brand, a family-owned and operated company for many decades, and yet they are a really interesting business because they don't just have that huge fleet of trucks you see on the road, rental trucks for businesses, but they also manage and maintain other people's fleets of trucks. And with Appian, they were able to modernize their customer experience. They were able to bring tablets into the yards and get you checked in and out with your truck much faster than ever, because it's an Appian application running on the Android tablet, as well as automate the back office operations for what they call the full truck cycle, repairing trucks, permitting trucks, and financing trucks. All of that can be brought together in a unified way, because Appian allows you to define your data and work on automating those workflows, even if the data doesn't live inside of Appian. Appian is really designed to work as well with data outside of us as it is with whatever you put in the Appian databases. Other customers like Aon in insurance, they made the news. They had a $30 billion merger this past week.
Right. Yep.
And they built a claims process in Appian in just 8 weeks. And so what we're showing with Appian is that any organization of any size and scale can do tremendously powerful things. Appian is designed for the most demanding enterprise environments, to work with your legacy systems as well as with your most modern software, but to also be simple enough that you can put business in charge and you can make dramatic change very quickly.
Great. Well, I'm sorry we didn't have this conversation in person, but hopefully, this time next year, we'll be back to live conferences.
I'm sure there'll be plenty of analog opportunities and experiences to come. But,
Excellent. Well, Michael, thank you very much. I think it's great technology, and I know I'm going to be hearing more about RPA in the future and what you guys are doing. So thanks so much for the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for your interest in the DevOps community and in low-code automation. I think that it's a great marriage of different interests and technologies, and look forward to working with you more in the future.
Excellent. Well, Michael, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. This is Charlene O'Hanlon, and I'm signing off. Have a great day, everybody. Okay, we're good. All right, that was great. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Hopefully it was everything that you wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, sure, it's fine.
Okay.
We could go on forever, but
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, like I said before, I think we'll be able to get this up probably within the next 24, 48 hours at the max. But certainly well within the time range since this has just been announced. So.
Yeah.
All right.
This is great.
All right. Well, thanks, Michael, and I hope all is good.
All right.
All right. Have a great day. Thanks.
Good. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Disruption is occurring across every aspect of IT. Open source, cloud services, DevOps, and cloud-native software architectures are democratizing IT and radically transforming how business is done. The old ways of creating software and doing IT are being replaced with agile, flexible, faster, and cheaper methods, benefiting vendors and users alike. Accelerated Strategies Group is out to democratize access of industry expertise and knowledge. We use our expertise and experience to offer insightful, intelligent, useful information in a variety of formats relevant to the IT community, digital events, videos, reports, assessments, workshops, and implementation projects with tech vendors, IT organizations, and business leaders. We widely and openly share our work products, often for free. Analyst reports these days aren't worth more than a graph or chart that tells a story or illustrates a market trend. We work with developers, DevOps teams, cloud architects, security engineers, and transformation leaders most every day, creating and implementing transformational strategies and technologies. We're not just thinkers, we're also doers.
Thanks, Charlene, for that. And now, as we often do, our next segment, we'll head on over to the Accelerated Strategies Group, and we're going to have ASG CEO and founder Mitch Ashley giving us his Analyst Corner. Mitchell, take it away.
So how are you finding this work at home thing? How is that happening for you, or the remote work, as we often call it? I actually call it work anywhere because of some strategies I've implemented as an IT organization. Working at home can be a great thing. It's forced on everyone here, given the current situation with the coronavirus. So I thought I would share with you some tips, things that I've learned from my own experience, but also from others. You know, working from home can have some big advantages. The biggest one might be the commute, especially if you have a long one. Can you imagine getting an hour and a half or more back a day if you have a reasonably long commute? That's great productivity saver right there. You also get to have meals with your family versus, you know, them paying the price because you're at work late and you can't see them or whatever. So that's a big plus to me. I also find that there's fewer interruptions. Now, I don't have little kids at home. I have some adult kids at home, college graduates who've come back during the coronavirus lockdown, if you will. But you can work out routines, and I'll talk a little bit about strategies of how to deal with things that come up, interruptions that come up because of that. But I think lastly is you can make this more productive, and it may require a little bit of adjustment, may require a lot of adjustment. It just depends on your work style, what things motivate you, what things distract you. So we're going to talk about some of those things. And again, distractions, of course, can be one of the biggest things. I think the two most important things I can recommend, and I will go into some other, but the two most important factors for remote work or working at home is the space you're in and creating a routine. Now, I've seen articles that talk about this and they often list space. Here's why I think space is important. I've tried to share space. I've tried to work in space in my house that was kind of set up to be able to work, but not really. What I've found is that I create an environment that has just like I want it. Matter of fact, it's the best of all worlds because it's the work environment. You know, I've got a few Star Wars props. I've got my laptop, a shared screen. In my case, I've got some lighting and mic and things for doing video recording. But it's set up exactly like I want it. And it's comfortable. It's great. I mean, I really like working in this kind of situation. So I'm not a fan of working out in the midst of the family, in the midst of the house. That can work depending on your situation. Maybe you don't have kids at home, things like that. But oftentimes what I've found is family members don't realize when you're working and when you're not. And it's easy to be, you know, taking a break and suddenly you're watching a show and then all of a sudden you're working on something and family interrupts you and you're like, no, hey, I'm working. Well, go to your office, quote unquote, wherever that is. Now, if you have to share a space in some way or share a room kind of as a multifunction room in the house, that's okay. Do what you need to do. One thing I noticed is that sharing an office with my spouse, with my wife, didn't work for us, mainly because I wasn't the best office mate in that kind of situation, because I would take a call and suddenly I'm on a call or I'm on a video call. And, you know, she didn't know, is this something that, you know, somebody walking in the background is kind of be weird or okay, or is that cool? And it's easy for events of the day the happenings kind of take over the space and the other person not realizes that, cool for me to be working in here too. So it worked best for us to set up separate offices. Though I'm in mine more frequently than she is, it still works really well for us. Nice thing is also, I have a pet bed in here for my dogs. The cats come in and visit. And so I have plenty of company when I want it. You can also do things like create a playlist if you like background noise. So maybe you like a TV show on, or maybe you like some music. There's now playlists for working at home, even on Spotify and other services. So if you like that, you can still create that. Again, now you can play it out loud and not worry about others, other coworkers necessarily. Of course, you have to worry about folks in your house, but, or if you like the silence, you like that quiet, you can create that too. Second biggest thing is routine. It's really easy to roll out of bed. Maybe you grab a cup of coffee, come in, start doing email. All of a sudden it's 10:30 or 11 and you haven't showered and you're going to be on a video call come up, or maybe you should have been on one. And so you disabled the camera, you didn't turn it on because you didn't want to be sitting in your robe. I think it's best to really create a routine, not just because of, when you're going to be on video or not, but I think it really sets part of that work style and habit. And that routine is, you have a routine when you go to the office. Usually, you're doing your commute, you get up in time, get ready, head out the door, grab your breakfast wherever you do on your way or at home. And then you do a certain set of things at the office. I would do the same thing in your work at home environment. What time do you regularly get up? Do you work out when you get up? Do you do some mindfulness meditation during the day? When do you typically have your meals? Plan that into your schedule. Actually put items in your schedule. I'm going to work out at 11:30 or at 7:30 a.m. I'm going to take a mindfulness break at 2 p.m. or whatever it is. So you can schedule your other activities around it. And be sure and take breaks. It's easy to sit at this chair all day long and all of a sudden you've got a backache and your torso needs to be stretched. And your legs are getting cramped. So take some breaks, and there's lots of things you can do. One of them is just eating meals, of course. And I recommend not eating at your desk. Go out, eat somewhere in the house, whether that's in your dining room, kind of kitchen nook, whatever it is. You also get a chance to interact with family, but really take a break. And speaking of family, walks are great things to do with family too during the day. So when you schedule a break. We do it to go get the mail because our mail is down the street in one of those combined post office mailboxes. You can listen to a podcast. It's a great way, like mindful meditation, it's a great way to kind of get yourself out of the flow of the routine. So let's talk about some other strategies and practical tips for working from home. I think number one for me is being on, active, and engaged. When you're at home, it's easy you just use email as kind of your window into what's happening into the office. And I'm a huge fan of getting out of email and using collaboration tools. I mean, things like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Google Chats, there are multiple things you can use, or even special purpose collaboration tools for managing workflow. So I really prefer to work in that environment. Email to me is very constraining because I don't get to choose what conversations I'm part of. I just get copied or sent stuff and I have to respond to it, versus in a conversational, I can choose if I want to be part of the cats channel to see cute pictures of pets, or I want to focus on, news and activities and my work and the team that I'm working with, or whatever that is. I have this 3 reply rule in email. If anyone, particularly me, is replying to an email chain for the 3rd time, it's time to move it into Slack or whatever tool you're using. So there's a lot of other, tools like that we could talk about, but I think that's probably the most important. The next thing I would talk about is make sure you've got very good Wi-Fi in your home. Now, it's easy to say if you don't have it and you're not sure how to get it. There's lots of places that you can get help from. One is your IT team. And I'm sure they're happy to give you some advice on equipment and what to do. But I think you're well suited to invest in some current equipment. Do something with AC, 802.11 AC, the current kind of highest speed standard that's readily available today. And make sure that you're connecting your laptop and your smartphone to the 5 gigahertz band, and leave the 2.4 gigahertz for, you know, common devices in the house. Now understand, you're going to be sharing that probably with family members. So you might need to coordinate some video meetings with their school studies and gaming and entertainment, or when you're uploading big files or something like that, doing downloads. So keep that in mind too. It's a shared medium. And of course, you're always at an advantage if you can create a wired connection. And the good news is every access point has Ethernet ports on the back of it. So if it's within reasonable distance, you can pick up an Ethernet cable and have a wired connection and have whatever speed that you're buying from your ISP. Speaking of equipment, you can upgrade your equipment, and I know some things are in short supply right now, like video cameras and laptops, because everyone's doing some upgrading or getting equipment they may not have had. But you can get those at local stores. One of the things I've found that I really like is some local electronic stores actually have online ordering with curbside pickup. So I built an entire computer that I'm using for video work from components. I like to build computers for gaming, for other things too, but I built one from scratch. And I needed 64 gig for memory and a decent processor. And I was able to do all of that from parts from Best Buy, in my case, actually from 2 different Best Buys that were within reasonable distance from my house. And I could order and pull up. They respond to their email, tell them what car I'm in, and they bring it out to you. So that's a great way if you do need to do some upgrade to your Wi-Fi or webcam or other equipment. So let's talk about video. I'm a big fan of using video. I don't know about you, but on conference calls where it's just people talking, it's really easy to get distracted, get bored, drift off, start working on other stuff. And you know what, we don't have interaction with each other in person now, so the visual part of it has gone away unless you're going to use video. So I definitely would recommend using video, and not just for the person who's speaking. Everybody gets on video. Matter of fact, I implemented a work anywhere strategy in an IT organization. That was one thing we did, is we worked as if there was no central office, even though there was one main headquarters. But we had video on everybody's laptop when you're in a meeting. Even if you're all there, one person is quote unquote remote. It's just treat like nobody's remote. We're all working this way, whether we're in the same room or not. But I think that will help keep you connected with others in the organization, just like the collaboration tools that I mentioned. Another thing I would recommend is brushing up on your meeting skills, your online meeting skills. If you're not readily apparent or readily adept at Zoom or WebEx or GoToMeeting, whatever it is that you use, take some time. You can set up a free account on most of those services. Go out, try it, work with it, see how to get your webcam started, how to turn it off, how to do sharing. Maybe you can even do with a coworker, try some of the screen sharing and handing off between people. So I do recommend that there's some things that you work on, make sure that you can do very easily without much fuss. First of all, of course, having your camera on and how to set that up. But I think most important is setting up meetings, scheduling meetings. And what I do is every meeting I do, I include, in my case, a Zoom invite into the meeting invite. Now, there's lots of plugins for Outlook and Gmail that will do that automatically. You have to do nothing other than maybe click one button to say, I want Zoom in this meeting. Matter of fact, in Gmail, you can have it add Outlook, or I'm sorry, add a Zoom or a Google Hangouts right into every meeting invite. And that way you're always connecting in the same medium. You're not worrying, well, is this kind of a call or that kind of a call? You just get onto whatever meeting service that you're using. So make sure you can do things, again, like the camera on and off, how you mute yourself. I'm not a big fan of waiting for the host to arrive to start the meeting. You can change that in the settings so that anybody shows up, they're in the room. There's, to me, not many cases where that's a requirement. I'm sure there are a few. But also make sure you know how to invite people during the meeting, because you may not have added all the right people to the meeting invite. You may need to add somebody. Usually there's a place where you can copy the URL, paste that into Slack or Team or email, and they can get in there very easily. Also, you want to know how to do screen sharing. So test that out. That can be kind of tricky because you can share individual applications and windows of an application or your entire desktop. And I recommend if you're going to do screen sharing, turn off your notifications in your application or in your operating system. So I use a Mac and there's one point to turn off notifications. So that way, maybe an embarrassing or not so comfortable Slack message pops up that you wouldn't have shared with the audience in your meeting, but you can turn those things off and notifications and things like that. Lastly, is you might need to record some meetings. I always ask for permission, but maybe you want to record it now that you've got it. You want it for notes purposes, so you can be more engaged and not have to be writing everything down. So that's a good option as well. Something else I would recommend is letting people in your organization know how you want to be contacted. Now it's not just walk down the hall, come to your cube, desk, or office. Hey, how you doing? Let's talk. Let's go grab a conference room or whatever. You're remote. They don't necessarily know what you're doing. You're at another location. They can't see you. They can't just walk down the hall. So let others know how you like to be contacted. And it may not be email or Slack or team. It might be texting. Actually, I prefer texting. If you need to get a hold of me urgently, I'll notice the text coming in versus conversational stuff happening in email and Slack. Not so much. Kind of phone call for me as a last resort. That's just my preference. Let your team know. Matter of fact, put that in your profile for your collaboration tool. So in our collaboration system, Slack, I have a link for how to schedule time with me. I use Calendly, which is a service that connects to your calendar so that if you give someone a URL, they can easily see times available and you can create different schedules for different purposes. And I also include, here's my preference of how to reach me. Text me via phone if it's urgent. So I want to wrap with two other important things. One is, some of us are workaholics and some of us need some motivation. And it depends on who you are in your work style. There can be some things that are either tough to turn on to get the day started or sometimes getting it to stop. I fall into more of the workaholic category. So one of the things I've found works really well for me is when the day is done and define when you're going to stop. Is if it's 5 o'clock or 4:30 or 6 or whatever it is, 3:30, whatever it is, leave that room, turn off the light, close the door. It's kind of a signal to you that you're done. Don't go sit and work in the living room. It lets the family know that you're off work, you're now here, you've switched into full-time being at home with family, not working all day long and stepping back into your office and starting to work again. That's worked really well for me, both for my own kind of psychology of it and also for my families. I think one of the most important things about us working remotely now is since we haven't all been doing this for a long time, it's not been kind of natural to work this way, is that we need to be compassionate and understanding that we're inviting each other into the other person's homes. I have a background that's added here from Zoom, but you'll see, hangings on the wall, people walking by, interruptions happening, cats walking across the desk, deliveries coming up, whatever. Kids needing something. Maybe one of the kids is sitting right next to you, working on a drawing project for school or some activity. Think of this as not office decorum, but think of this as casual professionalism. And let's be understanding. I saw a news show the other night where somebody fumbled their webcam. This was on a live broadcast and fumbled their webcam, made all kinds of noise, things that might happen in one of my meetings. And, they got back on, got things straightened out and said, apologies for the amateur hour here. I'm being my own producer, my own video producer. Stuff happens. It happens. So don't worry about it. And if a little faux pas here or there comes up, it's not a big deal. We're still all professionals in what we do. We still all appreciate each other. So a little bit of forgiveness can go a long way in that kind of thing and save some embarrassment too. So I hope these tips have been helpful to you. I'm also going to be doing some videos on leadership during this time of distance. and how to work with people, how to really engage in a different way, and some suggestions for keeping those relationships and connections alive.
DevOps.com is the #1 online destination for DevOps education and community building. DevOps.com covers all aspects of DevOps, including DevOps best practices and tools, DevOps culture, DevSecOps, business impact, continuous testing, continuous delivery, and more. DevOps.com has the largest collection of original DevOps content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.devops.com to learn more. DevOps.com, where the world meets DevOps.
All right, Mitchell, thank you very much for that. That was great. Hey, folks, today we have a little bit of a bonus session for you. I've actually asked my partner over at the DevOps Institute, my co-founder, Jane Grohl, who's CEO, to give us some words on what she's seeing, how DevOps Institute is proceeding in these new times, different times. So we're going to turn it over to Jane here for a few minutes, and I'll be back after that for closing remarks. Jane, take it away.
Thanks, Alan. Hi, everyone. I'm Jane Grohl, CEO of the DevOps Institute. And if you're not familiar with DevOps Institute, we are a global member organization whose mission is to advance the humans of DevOps. And never before has that mission been more critical than it is today. You know, there's a lot of scary news out there right now about the pandemic, about the number of cases, the regions that it's affecting, and you may be feeling a lot of stress because of the world news. You may be experiencing a new way of working if you formerly worked in an office and you're now working from home. You may also be experiencing a lot of stress if you have young children while you're trying to work from home because they're not in school. And so again, at DevOps Institute, we're going to take some steps to help make your time at home more productive and to open up opportunities for you as a human of DevOps to be able to continuously grow, to upskill, and to interact with other humans around the world. And I'll get to that in a bit. The news is predominantly bad, right? And I would be remiss if I pretended it was otherwise. But I'd like to take a few minutes and share some of my observations of the good, some of the things that are happening on the human level that are really positive, and it's really inspiring how many humans are adapting to these uncharted times. They're adapting to ways to connect with other humans, and I think equally they're adapting to ways to support their own personal growth, but also at the same time the growth of others. So let me share a little bit about some of the things that I'm seeing, so bear with me. And then I do want to wrap up and tell you some of the things that the DevOps Institute is doing to support those efforts as well. So the first thing I noticed is if you look on social media, there is an inherent human need for people to connect with each other. And so people like Nathan Harvey, people like Niladri, one of our ambassadors out of India, have really started to stand up these virtual hangouts, right? Nathan Harvey was doing virtual happy hours. Many others are doing virtual happy hours, or even just a virtual hangout, right? Something that you can get on a Zoom or a WebEx or some type of hangout and interact, see, share, eat, drink with other people. And you know, the positive side of this, and again, please don't misunderstand, I'm not making this a positive experience, but the positive side is that the borders are gone. So on any one virtual hangout and any one interaction, you could have people from all over the world participating and sharing and talking and expressing their feelings and asking questions and sharing knowledge. And that's a very, very positive thing. And we've seen seeds of that before the pandemic. But I think now that inherent human need to connect is really inspiring more creativity in terms of how we do that. I also see kind of a renewed emphasis on physical health, physical wellness, where because we're all being asked to stay at home, the need to exercise, the need to get outside and take a walk, again, far away from your neighbors, ride a bicycle, do that resistance band, whatever. But people are being very creative about keeping themselves physically fit. I've seen more virtual Zumba classes, virtual yoga classes, and by the way, now they're all free, right? So again, there's a generosity in the human spirit, I think, that's really coming forth in these bad times where, again, people are generously giving of their time, giving of their heart, and not necessarily looking at it from a cost perspective. And then there are conferences. I went to 16 conferences last year. I had the opportunity to travel to many parts of the world. And this year I'm not going anywhere, right? But I'm going to a lot of conferences. And in fact, DevOps Institute is going to host a monthly series of micro conferences known as Skill Up Days. And organizations are being creative about how do you make a virtual experience, a profound experience with many of the same elements that you might find in a live conference. So we still recognize the need to share knowledge. We still recognize the need to have a hallway track. We still recognize the need to understand what other organizations are doing, or to hear from thought leaders, or to interact with vendors. So there is a need there, and there's a lot of creativity that's happening right now in the conference space, where many are going into a virtual environment, and that virtual environment is going to either be a series of webinars, it's going to replicate a live conference, or a combination of the two. So with that, I want to tell you a little bit about DevOps Institute's virtual Skill Up Days, which are micro conferences that will happen every month starting in April. We've broken the monolithic conference down into a series of micro conferences. And what does that mean? That means that each of the micro conferences are going to focus on a particular topic. So in April, it will be value stream management. In May, it will be enterprise Kubernetes. In June, it'll be site reliability engineering. So it's taking the conference experience and really zeroing in on a particular practice or set of practices that are unique to DevOps and are known to be critical success factors for DevOps. And I'm particularly proud of Virtual Skill Up Days because we have engaged a conference platform that replicates as close as possible a physical in-person conference. There'll be an exhibit hall, there'll be an auditorium for sessions, there'll be a networking chat lounge, there'll even be the passport scavenger hunt and an opportunity to get some swag. So stay tuned. You can register for Virtual Skill Up Days for free, going to the DevOps Institute website as www.devopsinstitute.com. And speaking of free, many of the virtual events are now free. So whereas before when you went to a conference, you might have had to incur the cost and the time of airfare, of lodging, of food, certainly conference admission, which can be pretty hardy, and all of the other financial influences that may have impacted your organization's approval or rejection of your attendance at that conference. And what we're seeing with these virtual events is most of them are now free. Right? They're free. They're trying to be very creative in the approach like we're doing with Virtual Skill Up Days. So again, stay tuned, pay attention, because I said many of the events you might have wanted to go to or you have gone to in the past are trying to move into a virtual environment. I think that's really fantastic. One of the other things that really is coming out of this situation is the need to learn. Right? So there's been more of a migration to virtual learning. If you've ever taken a live instructor-led virtual class, let me tell you, I was a virtual instructor for a long time. They can be fantastic. They could feel like you're in a class with discussions and engagement with your classmates, whether they're your corporate colleagues or they're from other organizations. A great virtual live instructor experience can be very dynamic and can really come as close to being in the same room as possible. And many of our partners are moving to virtual live instructor-led training. Certainly there's many online opportunities for e-learning or micro-learning that's available to you as well. At DevOps Institute, one of the decisions we made is that while in the past we've required a prerequisite of attending a class at one of our partners, we've now removed that barrier to entry to our certification. And this week we announced an open testing program where if you feel that you've gained the knowledge in DevSecOps or continuous delivery or SRE, or DevOps test engineering, either through webinars, micro-learning, one of our classes, well, again, not our classes, our partners' classes, then we invite you to register for the exam. So you can buy the exam directly from us, you can buy it from one of our partners. You don't have to incur the cost of training. Again, we still do very much encourage formal training because we think it's the best experience, but we do understand that the humans at DevOps learn in a lot of different ways. And today there is a barrier to a live training class. So the open testing program is there. You can go up to our website. You can purchase the exam directly from us. We'll provide you with some basic materials and you'll be able to gain your certification that way. Other things are coming down the pipeline from DevOps Institute. We'll be introducing dynamic learning paths, among other opportunities. And recently, we released the upskilling report. So again, I can't encourage you enough to take this as an opportunity to learn, right? Learn something new, become a hybrid human, as we've encouraged in our recent upskilling report. Grow your T-shaped skills and move from what we call T-shape now to E-shape, where you want breadth of skills and depth of skills, but you also do want to add experience and exploration. You really do want to be well-rounded as we move forward into digital transformation. So I want to leave you with this. This is a horrible, horrible pandemic that's gripping the world. It isn't just gripping one region. It isn't gripping one set of people. It's gripping us all. And the news is terrible. The news is terrible. The only thing we can do as humans is adapt. And we're really good at that, right? Adapt your working environment, adapt your mental health, adapt your family, and adapt your approach to physical fitness, right? We are adaptive species. And so while the news is terrible, make this a productive time, right? Grow, learn, interact, optimize virtual environments, go to a virtual skill update, take a class or learn something new and become certified, or explore what opportunities are available to you, because this will pass. And when it passes, my prediction is that we will see an even greater and more rapid acceleration into the digital space, because organizations just got a taste of what it means to either be in transformation, need to transform, or adapt what they're doing today to what they need to do tomorrow. So make the most of it, right? And then finally, I leave you with just one thought. Humans need other humans, and humans need to support other humans. So be a good human, right? Be a good human. Find somebody online, virtually, go to a hangout, talk to other humans, be a mentor, be a peer, and help us all get through this very, very difficult time. So I invite you to become a member of DevOps Institute. It's free. Go up to our website. There's a lot of good assets up there. I invite you to listen to more videos as we have been experiencing right now. And I wish you safety, good health for both you and your family. Thank you.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey everyone, it's Alan Schimmel here. Going to wrap up for TechStrong TV on the Digital Anarchist Network today for Wednesday, April 1st. First of all, I want to thank Mitch Ashley, Jane Grohl, Charlene O'Hanlon for their help and participation in putting on TechStrong TV. Mitchell and Char are on almost every day, and it's not easy. I also want to give a big shout out to Paul Gustafson and Brian Yaskulker, our AV team here at Media Ops and Digital Anarchists, because it's easy for me to sit here in front of the cameras. I just talk. It's their job to take all of this, put it all together, broadcast it, get it out live, get the recordings done, do all the transitions and all the heavy lifting. So many thanks to Paul and Brian, as well as the rest of the production team here at Media Ops. Hope you enjoyed today's. Thank you most of all to you guys watching this. Hope you enjoyed today's broadcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. So until then, it's Alan Schimmel for TechStrong TV on the Digital Anarchist Network. Have a great day.